for a May evening. Can I address the out-of-the-box biz thinkers and guests and speakers and just everybody in the room? So, are you ready to learn something tonight?
Yes!
Excellent. Okay, let's get started. I'm thrilled to bring to you two expert guest speakers this evening. But before I do that, so I'll just hold you in suspense, I just want to share with you my vision, because I've been told many years ago, the more and more you share your vision of what you're doing and make it real and paint pictures for people, the easier it is for people to join you. And I want 120 people in this room with me every month. It's not because I don't have any friends. I just want this to be a kick-ass group, to be honest. So the vision for Out of the Box Biz, this is my formal vision, which the gold members that came along to the Where You Want to Be session at 4:30 this afternoon can draw this from the session we did. So if you're a gold member, you can come along at 4:30 before the meeting. You just need to tell me you're coming and we can go through that session. But I've read this to you a bunch of times. If you're a guest here, I'm sure you're quite capable of reading it. But just visualise this for a moment. It's a room like this, but that wall is not there. And we go back and fill 2 rooms, and there's 120 high quality people here who want to get to know each other over a long-term period so they can exchange quality business with each other and to get educated along the way. Does that sound good?
Yes.
Are you in?
Yes.
So, yes, we are going to be exclusive. We are going to be the best thing around for business networking and education in this town. So if you're not on board, we're going to cut off new membership at 120, and if you don't get in, you miss out. Members who are already in and who haven't missed out, now I know you're out-of-the-box thinkers, and I know you know more out-of-the-box thinkers. So if you know someone who you know needs to be a part of this, we'll just invite them along. And I think it actually speaks for itself. Well, I hope it does. So, what we do is networking and education, and through this experience of face-to-face events in this climate of online technology overdrive, is we grow our businesses together. We have 4 levels of membership, which I'll explain later, and the goal is 120 members, which I've already shared. So, I can never read that little tiny screen down there. I love this quote, and Sue Papadoulis is going to have a little smile on her face because I've blatantly taken this from her. You're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, and as she says in her seminar, she says, surround yourself with like-minded people that lift you up. And my life right now is a living example of that, because the 5 people that I spent the most time with 10 years ago is very different. Some people still survive. You're one of them.
Thanks.
Some people cut the mustard. But I realised that I wasn't surrounding myself with like-minded people enough to support me and uplift me for where I was headed, and now I do. And that's what this room and this monthly meeting is all about. So we do have an agenda. You do have it in your folders, both members and guests. And so that little bit where you were just chatting and networking, that's part of the agenda, the open networking. And I would really like to move Bianca. I just realised you're by yourself. Why don't you just come over here, go over near Hillary, because I know you don't want to be in the front row. That's far more social. Sorry, Bianca.
That's all right.
But I don't want you to be there by yourself. Okay. So this is the agenda we will follow this evening. We run a tight ship. I've probably gone over time. Sue's already going, get off, Fleur. I'd just like to introduce to you our first expert guest speaker. Now, a lot of you know Sue and I have known each other for a very long time, both as friends and colleagues. She's exceptional, and she is what she claims to be, the expert in publicity, both on a journalist side and also on the dark side, as she says, but I don't want to steal her thunder, on, publicity, PR, that industry. So, I've said enough. She's going to tell you more about it, so can you please make a warm welcome for Sue Papadoulis, please.
Delighted to be here this evening, and always fantastic to be with Fleur. As Fleur said, we go way back. We went to high school together, so it's a real blessing to have a friend that you've had for that long and still be as close as Fleur and I are. And I really commend Fleur on her initiative and drive for creating something like this in a very short space of time. We talked about it last year, and she had this, desire to create something special, and it's just so amazing to see it all coming together beautifully. So well done to Fleur. Yes, let's give Fleur a round of applause. All right, I'm going to be talking to you tonight about how to get publicity in the media. So to start off with, who would like to be in the news? Hands up. For the right reasons. Yes, good. All right, so what I would like you to do is take out a pen and piece of paper. You've all got pen and paper here. And I want you to write down your number one publicity goal. So if you could get any kind of publicity for you and or your business, where would that be? So which magazine, which TV show, which radio program, which newspaper, which online news outlet, what would that be? And write it down. Okay. It's always interesting for me to do that and see the expressions on people's faces. Some people go, yeah, I know exactly where I want to be. And some people go, oh, I've never even thought of that before. And you might have to be thinking a bit, what could it be that I could actually be in? I want you to know that no matter what you have written down, it's possible. Okay, so if your goal is national TV, or your goal is international TV, or if your goal is your local newspaper or the West Australian, or whatever that is for you, I can guarantee you that other people who have come to hear me speak and taken action have achieved that. We've had people be on just about every major national TV program in Australia, as well as international TV, Singapore and BBC, etc. So there's lots of opportunities for you. All you need to do, though, to start achieving anything in life is to have a goal and to write it down. So one of the biggest things you can do to achieve anything is to know where you want to be and then have a plan of action to get there. So I'm going to give you some pointers tonight on that plan of action to get yourself to whatever your media goal is. All right, let me explain first of all by what I mean by publicity. Okay, it's not advertising. Okay, it's not spending money on an ad. So who here has done that? Spent money on an ad in a local newspaper or something like that? And Alicia, did that work? No. Okay, short answer is no. And that's very common. The idea that you're spending money on an ad in a local newspaper or a magazine or on radio or something, often that doesn't work, and it doesn't work because we don't have big enough budgets. As small business owners, we don't have, tens of thousands of dollars to be throwing at advertising. And you need to be spending that kind of money to have cut through in advertising. If you're not spending tens of thousands of dollars and getting yourself onto TV and radio, newspapers, magazines, online, then it's probably not going to work. Okay, so if you do have a budget of kind of under $10,000 to spend on marketing or advertising, I really believe if you're going to spend it on ads, you may as well flush it down the toilet. It's not an effective use of your budget. What I am talking about is news stories. Okay, so actual news stories about you and your business in the media. So on TV, like the nightly news bulletins, like Koshi's Business Builders, like Sunrise or The Project or Today Tonight or one of those kinds of programs. Radio, a really overlooked type of media that can deliver amazing results. Something like 90% of people listen to radio every day in Australia. So their audience is huge, hundreds of thousands of people, and very few people like us contact radio stations offering themselves as someone who could be interviewed. So very easy to do to get yourself on something like 6PR or ABC or one of the talkback stations on the East Coast, or even one of the FM stations like 94.5 or 96 FM, anything that has talk. Okay, any program, a lot of breakfast programs have a lot of talk and they interview people, so there's no reason why if your story matches their target market, you couldn't be in the media. It's also stories in things like the West Australian or the Sunday Times, newspapers, or even on the East Coast, magazines, so My Business, Dynamic Business, BRW, New Idea, Cosmopolitan, Women's Weekly, all of those kinds of magazines, and online news outlets. So there's pure online news outlets, there's media organisations online, and there's blogs. And those kinds of opportunities are massive and certainly something we should be looking at with everything moving online. We should be trying to position ourselves more effectively online. So publicity is a process, and you might want to write these down, of first of all identifying a story about you and your business, so working out what a story might be, and I'm going to give you some tips on how to do that tonight and come up with some stories. Contacting a journalist and telling them about your story, and you do that through a press release, okay, which I'll be talking about a little bit later on tonight. Getting your story broadcast or published for free, okay, so there's no money changing hands, you're not paying for a space. Has anyone had the experience where they've been rung up by an advertising person offering them free editorial if they bought an ad? And Linda, did that work? Did you take it up?
I did, and it actually worked.
That's okay.
Is that right?
No, that's okay. So it worked in terms of what happened?
Drew attention to this. That's when I was as a therapist.
Yep.
And they interviewed me as a therapist, and they did a full page,
Uh-huh.
showing pictures and stuff.
Uh-huh.
Um,
And did you get more business as a
I
result?
got more clients, but I didn't necessarily get the right clients.
Okay.
So yeah, I didn't do it again because as a therapist, that worked out for me much better.
Worked better. Okay, so you didn't get the right kind of clients, so it wasn't very effective, and you probably had to spend a bit of money to get that.
I did have to spend money to
Yeah.
find the ad to get
Yep. Okay, so mostly what I find from people who've had that experience is it didn't work that well. It may have got, as Linda said, they may have got 1 or 2 clients, but the reason that doesn't work, the free editorial thing doesn't work, is because as a journalist, when you get told by the advertising person to write a story for someone who's bought an ad, you get annoyed. Like, I'm a journalist and my space is not for free. You can't buy my story. So I don't do a good job. So my strategy is I don't do a good job. I might go and look at Linda's website and steal some copy from her website, or take copy from her brochure or something. And you know, when you read that kind of stuff, it sounds like promotion. And as the audience, you're reading it and you're thinking, this doesn't really sound like a story. There's something not quite right here. And then you start looking for the advertorial little fine print somewhere. That's what I do. And then as soon as I see that, I think, it's an ad. And it loses credibility. People don't believe it. As opposed to a news story where they definitely do believe it because the media says it is as it is. And increasing awareness of you and your business and getting new clients as a result of you being in the media. That's the last part of the process. And most importantly, making profit from your coverage. Okay, so you need to be getting new clients, you need to be getting the right kind of clients, and they need to be spending money with you as a result of your publicity. So actually making money from it. So how you go about getting publicity will determine the results. Okay, so there's a couple of ways you can go about getting publicity. Now, I call it the old school way, but it's basically the way it works. I call it the old school way because we're revolutionising the way this whole industry operates. And basically, as small business owners, we're kind of trained to believe that we should outsource things because we're so busy. Outsource, outsource, outsource. And PR, we think, should be something that we outsource because PR firms exist, and therefore that's something that we should be able to outsource. So we're kind of trained to think like this. We go and hire someone to do it for you. The issue with this, there's many issues with this, but one of the biggest issues is they charge you a lot of money. Okay, they put together some proposal and there's a big fat figure down the bottom of it that scares you quite a bit. You're not quite sure what they're going to do for that money. They don't really explain it in any great detail. It's all a bit vague. They don't certainly guarantee you any media coverage. If you spend $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 with them, they don't say you'll definitely get media coverage as a result. You might get media coverage, but they'll probably talk about it in terms of this fancy term, brand awareness, which is a great term for PR firms and marketing experts to use, which is a big fat get out clause. It basically means it's not going to work. I really believe that, having hired PR firms and marketing companies, if they told me the only thing I'm going to get out of spending thousands of dollars with them is brand awareness, forget it. Brand awareness is great for Coke and McDonald's and Virgin and those big companies who need to get their kind of name out there. But we need bums on seats. We need dollars in the door. We don't need brand awareness. So if someone says to you, spend $5,000 and I'm going to get you brand awareness, turn and walk in the other direction very quickly, because it's going to be one big fat waste of money, in my opinion. And it becomes something that you spend money on, okay? Something that you have to spend money on as opposed to making money from. Now, our system is you learn how to do it yourself, and it's incredibly easy to do. Once you know how to do this, it's really very simple. And you just spend an hour or two per month getting yourself out there, doing your PR. Who likes the sound of an hour or two per month to promote their business? Yeah, absolutely. It's not rocket science. So you could get someone on your team to do this for you, so an admin person or someone who answers your phone. It's not difficult. You don't need a degree in PR to be able to do this. You learn how to get those opportunities. You learn how to craft a press release to send to a journalist so it does position your message so you get sales back into your business, and it becomes something that you make money from, not that you spend money on. And that's really critical to how successful this can be for you. Every small business has a story. I meet a lot of business owners, and one of the most common things I hear from people is, but you know what? There's nothing really interesting about me. I haven't done anything special. I haven't won an award. I haven't written a book. I haven't done anything really apart from run my business. Well, that doesn't matter. You have loads of stories in your business. And my mission on this planet, I've realised in the last couple of years, is to help other small business owners step up and play a bigger game by being in the media. Being in the media is one of the best things you can do to step up, to go, hello world, here I am and I'm ready. I'm going to do something more than just the run of the mill. Okay. A lot of small business owners don't do this though. Most small business owners, in fact, I'd say 90% of small business owners, apart from the 10% who I've met, don't do this. And as a journalist, I was a journalist, we never ever heard from you guys. You guys never sent press releases to a journalist. So for those of you who haven't ever reached out to the media or balk at the thought of doing it, give me some reasons why not. Why haven't you? Just shout them out.
You don't think they'd find it interesting?
You don't think they'd find it interesting? Yep. Yep. Very common. Anything else? Time consuming. Okay. Yep.
That's for me.
Not for
For
you?
the bigger guys only.
It's only for the bigger guys, not for the small guys? Yeah, that's a common one and very untrue. And can I just address that for a second? Big business uses the media, obviously sends out press releases, and the big guys do that and they get the benefits of that. But as a journalist, and I was a journalist, I would have much heard from the small guy, because you guys have passion and enthusiasm and knowledge and dedication. Big business is kind of like nameless, faceless, dry, boring, dull, colourless. You guys, and trying usually to manipulate me in some way. They're trying to spin a message in some way. You guys have heart, and that's what the media loves, because you connect to their audience in a really powerful way. So these are some of the reasons I commonly hear. You feel intimidated by the thought of contacting the media, don't understand how the media works, worried you might get it wrong, worried about negative publicity. Can I just address that one too? Because some people have a real fear. Oh my gosh, if I talk to the media, it's all going to be misconstrued and turned into something that I don't want it to be, and they're going to do a hatchet job on me. A journalist, the worst thing that can happen to you by reaching out to the media is a journalist decides just not to do your story. Okay? They don't have the time or the inclination to be chasing you down the street with a microphone, asking you some kind of difficult question. They save that for people who have broken the law. So if you've broken the law, probably not a good idea. But if you haven't done anything drastically bad, don't worry about the negative publicity stuff. And worried, of course, that you might get stung by the big PR firm fees. So why do we want to help you? There's a couple of other ladies on that screen, Oriana on the right and Liz on the left. Oriana's in Sydney and Liz is in Perth, and they're journalists who've joined our team and who deliver some of our extended programs. And we all are journalists by trade, so we've got a long history in the media, and we all share the same values and opinions and beliefs about the media, and that was very important to me to align with other people who had the same approach as I did. We all have a common desire to move away from the negativity of being in the media, because we all got to a certain point in our career where we went, oh my gosh, this is probably one of the worst career jobs ideas I ever had, to be a journalist, because it's such an awful industry to be in. It really is. It's negative, negative, negative. Oriana tells a story about how she was working at The Australian up until last year, and her first job was at the Daily Telegraph in Sydney. And when she first started, she was what's called an ambulance chaser. So her job was to work, she started on a Friday, she worked across the weekend, and she started at midnight and she finished at 9 o'clock in the morning. That was her shift. And her job was to get to work, turn the police radio on in the newsroom, listen to all the horrible things that were happening in King's Cross or somewhere, And when there was something awful happening, get into the news car with the photographer, go to the scene, chase around behind the ambulance to see what was going on and try and take a photo. What a horrible thing to do. And she said she got to the point where she was actually physically sick before she'd go to work every night. And she finally moved on and worked at magazines and changed direction, but she's just very grateful now to be doing something that is good with her skill set. And that's certainly my experience too. It's all started for me across the road at Curtin. I studied journalism, left the uni and got my job, first job in TV, and didn't really enjoy TV, I had to say. Different breed of person who's in the TV world. And I went to my first real love, which was radio. And I worked in radio in Perth and also over in London for a number of years. I came back from London, I got, I suppose, the best job you can get as a journalist, which is news editor. And I was news editor of 6PR and 96 FM. And a lot of responsibility suddenly. And up until that point, I hadn't realised really the impact of what I was doing by being a journalist. But when I became news editor, the buck stopped with me. So I would have, if we got something wrong or there was a complaint, it all came back to me. And there were a couple of things that happened that changed my career at that point. And one of those things was a phone call I took from someone who wasn't happy with what we had read in the news. And the story was, I had actually read the bulletin on 6PR, and the story was there had been an accident, a traffic accident. And so we did the first story in the first bulletin about the fact there'd been an accident. The next story, next half an hour bulletin, was there was a big traffic jam around that accident. The next story was we found out that it had been a fatal accident, someone had been killed. The next story was police said that it had been a child who'd been killed. The next story, so over the course of 3 or 4 hours, every story just, another story, another 15 seconds to fill my bulletin. The last story I did was the story that police released to us, which was police released the name of the child who'd been killed in the car accident. So I read that story out, not even thinking about it. It was just another story. And I got out of the bulletin and came back into the newsroom, and one of my young journalists who I had employed, she was 21, she was that cutthroat, very competitive, go-getting, career-driven young woman, like most journalists are. And she said something that floored me. First of all, she said, "There's some bitch woman on the line." And when she said that, I just went, I had one of those moments of physical reaction to, these are not my people. Like, I don't know who you are, but I'm not like you. But I'd employed her because I could see she had the characteristics to be a good journalist. And then she said, "I think it's the mother of the kid who was killed in the accident." Yeah. And that was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. And I do get emotional every time I tell that story. I went into the newsroom, closed the door, and took the call from this lady. And as you can imagine, she was incredibly upset, very angry with me, because I had just named her child in the context of a news bulletin, and the child had just been killed. And so while, I could have said, well, legally we're able to do that because the police had released the name and immediate family had been told and blah, blah, blah. There was a whole community of other people who didn't know anything about this, and they knew the family, and I just told them that someone that they knew and loved had been killed. And I realised then how incredibly hurtful I had been without even realising it. So I did two things. I decided then and there that I would change the policy of news at 6PR, so we no longer released the name of anyone who'd been killed, because it served no purpose than to hurt a lot of people. And the other thing I decided was to leave the profession. I thought, I can't imagine continuing to do this for the rest of my life and having that level of distress. So I left, and I did the only thing I thought I could do with my skill set, which is what Fleur said earlier, which was to go to the dark side of PR. And I say the dark side because it really does feel, when you're a journalist and you go and work on the other side of the fence as a PR person, that you kind of sold your soul to the devil and you've sold out. But I did that, and I realised when I got that job in PR, it took me a while to get the job actually, because I couldn't speak their lingo. I didn't know what a communication strategy was and any of their jargon. So I went through quite a few interviews before I actually got a job. And when I got a job, I realised I was really good at it. Like I could generate loads of publicity for other people only because I knew what a journalist wanted. I didn't know about all the academics and these PR people had studied and all I knew was what a journalist wanted, and that made all the difference in the world. Along the way, I left that organisation and started my own business, had a baby and started my own business, and that was a huge step off the cliff, as many of you have done, and that was also in PR. I also decided that I wanted to do something more than that. I've always had this drive to do something bigger. So I thought what I can do is help other women like me who have a fear of starting a business. And I could start a website for them with all the details on how to start a business. And I called it Home Biz Chicks. So I launched this website, cost me 10 grand that I didn't have. I put it on a credit card because I felt like it was just such a great idea. It's got to work. Who's had that? This is just such a great idea, it's got to work. Yep, a lot of people in the room. And you know what? It didn't. It didn't. Nobody came. So I had this kind of white elephant of a website. And funnily enough, I knew nothing about websites back then. I don't know why I actually thought I could do this when I knew nothing about websites. And I remember just going one night for a walk to get away from the stress of having this business that was. And as I was walking, I had a brainwave of an idea, kind of hit me in the face. And the brainwave was I could use publicity to get my website out there. I had my own PR firm and I'd been a journalist, but I couldn't see what was right in front of my face. So I literally ran home that night, don't run, but I ran home that night, and I threw together a press release in less than 15 minutes. And I decided to think, suddenly think, where can I send it for the biggest hit? Where in the media would this be interesting? So I'm thinking my target market is women at home who want to start a business. Where are they in the media? So I matched my target market to the target market of the media. And I want you to write that down. It's a really big thing that you have to do in order to get publicity. Ooh. Nearly disappeared down the crack. Match, yes, I was going to, but I lost my shoe down the crack. Match your target market to the target market of the media. Match your target market to the target market of the media. So for me, it was a show like A Current Affair because they seem to do a lot of chick-focused stories. Like they do weight loss and they do grocery buying all the time and they do kids' stories, that kind of stuff. In fact, Michelle Nazaroff, who knows Michelle? She was here. Yeah, she was filming with Today Tonight today on a story about being, fit and healthy. So I went to the Current Affairs website, tried to find somewhere to put send my press release to. Couldn't find anyone's name, but they have a submit your story idea box. So I thought, you know what? I'm just going to copy and paste my press release into that box. So I did that, hit submit. And they called me back in an hour and they said, we would love to do a story on you and your business. And I just went, yes, thank the Lord. Maybe it was going to get me out of our financial poo and maybe it would basically launch my business. And it did that and then some. Very, very easy to do, probably the easiest publicity I've ever generated. We had a 15-fold increase in the database in 20 minutes. Yeah, because we had an opt-in on our website. Anyone know about opt-ins? Anton will tell you about opt-ins. Maybe, oh, there I go again. Going down this.
Watch the gap.
Yeah, I've got to watch the gap. Mind the gap. People could leave their contact details on my website in exchange for a free report. That's basically it. We sold $40,000 worth of products selling a $19.95 a month membership. $40,000 worth of products selling a $20 a month membership. Yes. And then I thought, imagine if I had a $50 product or a $100 product or a $500 or a $1,000 product. If I just had them on the damn website, imagine what else we could have done. But you know what? I was happy with the 40 grand because it got the business basically started up. It gave me an instant database. For 6 months, I didn't do any more publicity because I had all the clients I could possibly need. Okay, so that's basically where I've come from and where we are now, which is revolutionising this PR industry. And we are on a mission to do that around Australia. We run programs and so forth in Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane and Perth. And it's just such an amazing position to be in, to be inspiring and changing people's business lives in such a powerful way. Okay, so let's talk about how the media works. So there's always the big stories of the day. Okay, so I don't know, I haven't had a look at today's West. Has anyone seen today's West or what's the big story today? Yesterday was a house explosion, house fire. I think it was a drug lab somewhere in the southern suburbs, I think. So that's a big story. That's not our kind of story, hopefully. So that's not us, okay? But most stories you'll start to notice when you leave here and you'll start looking at the media in a different way are just useful pieces of information. Most of the stories in the media are just useful pieces of information. Okay, there was, as I was coming in, I heard the Channel 7 news promo and they said something like safety concerns over solar panels this winter. And then I was thinking, that sounds like one of our students who is a solar panel woman. She did the training, one of our trainings a couple of weeks ago, so I'm hoping that's her. So that kind of stuff is just a how-to do something or other, a useful piece of information. So you'll start to notice that when you leave here, looking through a magazine or listening to the radio, how much of that is just how to do something or, you know, be aware of something in particular. Okay, so the first step to getting publicity is understanding a journalist needs you as much as you need them, okay? They need you to get stories. They can't just magic stories up on their own. They need people sending in press releases, okay? And often there is not much going on, okay? So often there aren't too many house explosions happening or big other stories happening and no one's sending in press releases. And I know as a journalist there were many times when I was desperate for news. And none of you guys ever sent me a press release. If any of you had sent me a press release that was interesting to my audience, I would have been more than happy to talk to you. Okay, so you have to give a journalist a good story. Okay, you have to give them a story that's going to interest their target market. So it's not about you personally. As interesting as you may feel that you are, it's not about you personally. And many of you are very interesting people. But the biggest mistake I see a lot of people making is talking about themselves, talking about their stuff. Okay, that's not what's interesting to the media. What's interesting to media is a story that interests their audience. So let me show you how to do that. So you give them a story, they help you with publicity, which results in clients for you, but you can't go at it in a salesy way. Okay, so no sales letters, no marketing speak. Don't take your words from your brochure and put them into a press release or the words from your website and put them into a press release. It has to interest their audience. So for example, here's something that I would see all the time from PR people and from business owners who didn't get it. Okay? Real estate agent Jenny Smith is pleased to announce the launch of her new website, joondaluprealestate.com.au. You know what? There's nothing really interesting about that for anyone apart from Jenny and her staff and maybe her mum. Okay, so, but as a journalist, I would get that kind of stuff all the time. And then it would be followed up with a phone call from Jenny saying, why the hell aren't you interested in my story about my new website? There's nothing in it for the audience, okay. What we can do is something like how to add $50,000 to the sale price of your home this spring. That is interesting to the audience. That would get a run and Jenny would get publicity because she's given away something of value. Okay, so we're getting the idea? So finding a story about your business. How do you come up with a story? The biggest tip I can give you about this is to tie in with something that's already happening in the news. Tie in with something else that's already happening in the news. Okay, so there are things that come up out of the blue, like the house explosion, drug lab thing. So if you had, in fact, there was a lady that I helped in Melbourne and her whole business was cleaning up after drug labs in homes. So every time, yeah, amazing. So there's that many of them happening. So every time there's some drug lab thing, she's in the media because she ties herself into that story every single time. Okay, so there are things that come up out of the blue that we can tie ourselves into if we're quick enough. You know, something happens big and we can jump on it on the day, then we have a story. There are other things that we can plan for. Okay, so what I usually teach people is to have one idea per month for your business for 6 months. Okay, so I don't want anyone to work too hard. One idea, one press release per month for 6 months for your business. So if you can think of things that are coming up in the next 6 months that you might be able to tie in with, then you could start thinking how I could do this on a regular basis. So things like the weather. The weather is always in the news. Who can give me some examples of some weather stories? A weather story.
How to help your stormy business or something.
Yeah, how to help a business during stormy times. So that's kind of like a bit of a long link, but the concept is still there. Yeah, anything else?
How to deal with winter blues in your business.
how to deal with winter blues in your business. Yeah, John, did you?
Mine could be how to keep the kilos off during winter without
Yes.
trying.
Yes, how to keep the kilos off during winter without trying. Yep, perfect. Yep. Or you could have, specific weather event stories like cyclones, floods, how to cope with the summer heat wave, how to cope with the winter chills, cold snaps, fog. You name it. We talk about it all the time in the media. So if you can tie yourself into something to do with the weather, and most businesses have some kind of weather-related story, even if it is spring cleaning your business, that kind of stuff, which is not actually talking about a flood. Something else, Easter. Easter's not too far ago. Who can think of some Easter-related stories? Yes, I know you're looking at me, but no, lady in the red shirt. No, not the lady behind you. You right there. Have you got an Easter-related story? Oh, come on. Come on out of the box thinkers. Come on, we need some stories. Easter. Rebirthing something. What? Feel like you've been crucified? Okay. I was just thinking chocolate. Something pretty easy. We don't have to get too deep here. Just
Pet chocolate toxicities over Easter.
pet chocolate toxicity. Yeah. Is that what your business is?
I work for.
Perfect. Yep.
It was Linda came up with the idea. She writes my newsletter, making a gingerbread house in real estate. So
Oh, cool.
recipe, yeah.
Very good. Yes.
I got some publicity after your course, and it was GW 7 years, and I talked about inflammatory foods and how Easter buns and
Yes.
chocolates were.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Yep. Perfect.
And
Yep. Yes, the gingerbread lady's not happy about that. Okay, so here are some other ideas. Here's some other ideas that we see quite frequently. Save the bilby. Who's seen a Save the Frickin' Bilby story? Everyone must have seen a Save, or is it just me? And, I don't know, the bilby thing does my head in, I have to say. I'm apologising to any environmentalists there are in the room, but the bilby has been on, I don't know if you noticed, it's been on the verge of extinction for at least 30 years that I've noticed. And it's still going strong. But the environmentalists know that at Easter time, all these journalists are sitting in the newsroom, desperate for news, and nothing's happening because big business shuts down and government shuts down and no one sends in press releases, certainly not you guys. And then the environmentalists, suddenly through the email comes this Bilby Easter story, and you go, oh my God, the Bilby Easter story again, but I have to do it because I have nothing else to fill my space with. This year, I don't know if you noticed, I've got this thing about Bilbies you might have noticed, but the bloody royal family got on the Bilby bandwagon this year. And Prince George got named after some Bilby exhibition, and he got given a bunny, a soft, fluffy Bilby. The best thing about it was he chucked it, though, away. But go George. Anyway, and so they've really hijacked the Easter thing just because the bilby looks vaguely like a rabbit. But they understand that works, and it works incredibly effectively for them. And the bilby then got international coverage, might I add, because they got Prince George onto it as well. So, other stories. Road and car safety, how to keep the kids entertained, budget family getaways, how to avoid putting on weight, healthy alternatives to chocolate eggs, home renovation tips, because it's 4 days off and everyone goes bananas with their renovation over Easter. How to budget so you can have a family holiday every Easter. Why business owners should use the Easter break to rejuvenate a business coach. So there's lots of different Easter-related stories that you could be doing, and can I tell you, there are journalists who would love to hear from you at that time for no other reason than there's nothing else happening. And if someone would just send something vaguely creative associated with Easter, you get some great publicity. Okay, the third step is to write a press release. Okay, I say write, but really you should say create, because some people freak out that they don't have great writing skills. Who's in that boat? Don't have great writing skills? Don't worry about that. If you can follow a template, you can create a press release, very simply. Okay, and a press release basically is the appropriate way to contact a journalist. They do not want you to pick up the phone and say, hi, I've got a great story for you, because they get a lot of calls and a lot of press releases, and if everyone called them, that's all they would be doing. So you have to create a press release, and basically a press release is the introduction to a journalist. It basically is saying, you know, here I am and here's my story. It's a one-page document, so it's not a long 3 or 4 page thing, it's just one page, so it doesn't have to be too long. It could become the story, so often a journalist will interview you on the basis of what's in your press release, or they could just copy and paste bits of it and use that in the story. It could be the basis of a bigger story, so they may look at your story and think, right, we want to expand on that and interview some other people. It could spark another idea, or it could just position you as an expert in your field who they can come back to at a later stage. And often they are looking for people who are experts in different fields to have on their records, so if something comes up, they can quickly call you if they need to speak to someone in your field. Okay, so what you need in a press release, it's a one-page document and it needs to look right. Okay, so it needs to look like a press release with press release written across the top and a headline and the date and so forth. It should be concise and conversational. So concise means it's short. Okay, so one page, and the sentences should be short. We don't want big blocks of paragraph text because a journalist is only ever going to skim read your press release on when they first receive it. They're never going to look at it in detail. And if you've got big blocks of text, they can't skim read it. And they won't bother to read it at all if they can't skim read it. It has a headline, which is really critical to the success of it. So it's very much like a newspaper headline. So when you read a newspaper and you look at the headline, you know what the story is vaguely about. You read the next line, you know what the whole thing's about. And then you decide whether you want to read the rest of it based on the headline and the opening line. So that's what you need to get across in your press release, is have a strong headline that gets straight to the heart of the matter, and then an opening line that gives more detail about what you have in your headline. So the headline is not too long, not too wordy, not too professional sounding. So what happens when we start writing is the voice in our head says, we are not good enough. And we need to sound like someone else. We need to sound more like Jo down the road because she's smart and she's better. So I'll think that I'm Jo and I'll use Jo's fancy words. And then you just totally disconnect to yourself. And a journalist wants you. They don't want Jo down the road because you connect beautifully with their audience, not trying to be someone else. Okay, so the rest of it after you've got your headline and your opening line is quality text, so it's got to be written in a reasonably easy to understand way, and it's got to answer all the questions about your topic. So the who, what, when, where, how and why. Okay, which basically means don't leave anything unanswered. So don't use a piece of jargon or say something that you assume people know about. You have to actually explain what you're talking about. And your contact details down the bottom. So basically it looks like that, with press release across the top, headline, the content, and then your contact details down the bottom. And you have to have all your contact details. So you can be very easily contacted. So your mobile number, your landline, your email address, your website. And then don't turn your phone off. There's one thing that used to annoy me more than anything else when I was a journalist was getting a great press release and I'm reading the news in the next half an hour and I have to fill the space and I'm going to interview this person because they've sent me a great press release. I ring and it goes to message bank. And I go, I'm going to start the process all over again now and find someone else. So then I would ring again in an hour, give them a second chance. And if it went to message bank, that was it, got deleted. Because I had too many deadlines to worry about whether they were going to answer the phone. Okay, so that's one of the biggest mistakes you can make is send a press release and then go into a meeting for 3 hours. You'll lose the opportunity. Okay, so the process is you come up with an idea, you put together a press release, you work out where to send it, so which newspapers, magazines, TV programs, online news outlets, etc. are interested. And the best tip I can give you there is match your target market to their target market, like I said earlier. And often that's just as easy as picking up the magazine and looking at it and saying, what kind of stories does this suit? Does it suit my target market? Research who is who. So research who needs to get your press release. Is it a researcher, producer, editorial coordinator? Who is the person that needs to get your press release? Email your press release. Don't fax it, don't post it. Email it. And when you are emailing it, think about what you say in that email because it's your first interaction with the journalist. So one of the tips I share is never say the P word. What do you reckon the P word is? Publicity. Good. Most people say please when I ask that question. It's okay to say please. But don't say, I'm just hoping for a bit of publicity about this thing, because then they'll go, no, this is a promotion for you. And they'll just suddenly realise it's a promotion, not a story. Okay, so don't put it to them as it's some kind of publicity. Call the journalist. You have to call. You must call. If you don't call, don't expect to get publicity. And that's where the process breaks down for a lot of people, because we start to get that feeling of fear. I don't want to make the call. Okay? Most of the time when I call a journalist, they are grateful. They say, thank you so much. I was going to do that story and I'd forgotten about it and I'm pleased you called. Okay, so you have to do that follow-up phone call and prepare for an interview. So they'll say, we would love to have an interview with you. So you have to think about what you would say, what questions they might ask, and what you could say. So a great press release is the key that opens the door to publicity. It's also the key that opens the door to sales. Okay, so while I've been talking about finding a story that's interesting to an audience, I know that you're all here to really create more sales at the end of the day. That's why you really want to get publicity. And the way you go about getting those extra sales is to look at potential other partners that you could be involved in. So you could definitely get more customers directly coming to you as a result of publicity, but also other businesses wanting to do business with you as a result of you being in the media. So that's one of the fastest ways to grow your business, is being exposed to someone else's client database. And that happens all the time. It can also help you get financing. So you're actually 30% more likely to get a loan approved from the bank if you've had some publicity. And I had a lady from Westpac come to one of my seminars and I said, Debbie, would you agree with that? And she said, absolutely. If we have someone come in who's applying for a loan and they bring in a little portfolio of their media coverage for that loan interview, we are instantly impressed, because you look so much more onto running a business than the guy before you who couldn't fill out the form properly, that they're much more likely to give you a loan. It can bring you sponsors, it can bring you investors, it can bring you joint venture partners, other businesses wanting to do business with you as a result. A great example of that is Easy Shop. Easy Shop is an online grocery company, and their press release basically was about the fact that they make grocery shopping easier for people. Nothing too amazing, but they were in the market of online grocery shopping before Coles and Woolies came into the market. And then Coles and Woolies came into online grocery shopping, and Paul, the owner of Easy Shop, flipped out. He was, oh my gosh, it's going to be the end of my business. I said, Paul, you've got some great stories. Why don't you reach out to the media? Why don't you send a press release out? So he came up with the idea of a David and Goliath battle. I don't know if you've noticed, but the media loves a good David and Goliath battle. And we're all Davids because we're small. So a David and Goliath battle over grocery shopping, online grocery shopping, was his headline of his press release. And he sent it to A Current Affair. Now, when A Current Affair got that press release, I'm sure they would have been doing a happy dance, because they love a good David and Goliath battle and they love grocery shopping. So if you put the two things together, it's just like, it doesn't get any better than that for A Current Affair. Yes. So he got himself onto A Current Affair. He had a 700% increase in web hits as soon as it went to air, a 300% increase in members, a 20% increase in sales, and to this day, 2 years later, his sales never dropped below 15% higher than what they were before, because those customers stayed with him. And he said nothing has given him the same result. He's done every kind of marketing and advertising you can think of. He's spent a whole lot of money on advertising. Nothing has given him the same result as that one story on A Current Affair. And then something else amazing happened. IGA, who weren't in online grocery shopping, saw Paul on A Current Affair. And they said, we need Paul to help us get into online grocery shopping. And that deal has been worth millions. One press release to one journalist at A Current Affair. So what can publicity mean for you? Some other amazing results. Scott Wolford, who is a natural healer. He's a woo-woo natural healer. He's a shaman. I call him woo-woo man. He does all sorts of weird and wonderful things, burns incense over people and things. And he got his press release onto Channel 7's morning show, and they got back to him within 2 minutes wanting an exclusive as soon as they sent his press release in. And that has changed his life, because he never made money out of what he did before, because it was a natural gift. I was speaking to his wife, Belinda, and she said they've got 3 little kids and he never made money before. And now they've got people travelling 4 hours, he's in Sydney, 4 hours to have a consult with him. He's been invited to speak at a wellness conference every year where he sells thousands of dollars worth of his products. these people saw him on Channel 7's morning show as a result. I'm just about to finish and happy to answer your questions, but I just want to leave you with some parting thoughts. As I said earlier, it really is my mission, I believe, and it's a lovely point in your life when you get to understand what you should be doing with yourself and your life. And I'm at that point now where my mission is to inspire small business owners to step up, to believe in themselves, to overcome your limiting beliefs and your fears and your self-doubt, and do what you're put on this planet to do. I really believe we are all here for some reason, and it's our responsibility to help as many people as we can. And that means being in the media in order to get your message out there in a bigger and more impactful way. And that has been one of the things that I've really worked on in the last few years, has been stepping up over fear. Doing what I can to grow myself, because I know when I grow myself, my business grows. Every time I grow, my business expands, because what I believe is possible for myself expands. And I have worked very hard on that, stepping up over fears in the last couple of years. And I overcame one of my biggest fears of my entire life about 4 years ago. And that fear stopped me from doing so many things. I really wanted to do various things in my career, but I never could. I always believed I had limitations around what was possible for me. In my own mind, I was constantly saying, you know, it's different for me. I don't know if anyone's had that experience. Everyone else can do it, but it's different for me. And that was what I really believed. And I've finally found a way to step up over my biggest fear of my life, which was a fear of public speaking. There's no way I could have ever imagined doing this, ever. And I get emotional when I talk about that too. Because it was such a huge mountain blocking my path. And people would say, well, how could you have that fear if you read the news? Well, your mind puts parameters around what you can and can't do with your fear. So my fear said to me, you can read the news because it's not public speaking, it's you in a studio with a microphone. But if someone would walk in while I was reading the news, I'd go to pieces, because then it became public speaking. And at some point I realised it was just me telling myself this amazing, intricate story around what was possible. But I really believe if I can step up over that, which was no mean feat, it was a really, in fact, one of the things that I did was got into the habit of saying yes when I was in the flow and developing courage. And when I heard that yes, just taking action straight away. And one of the big things that I ended up doing was accepting an invitation to speak. That was like the last part of the process. And that invitation to speak was in this room. About 4.5 years ago, a lady told me earlier that she was in this room at that. I do get people who tell me they remember that presentation. And you were there too. And a lot of people say, oh, I had no idea that you were so terrified, but I was absolutely terrified. But saying yes to that thing, that opportunity, totally changed my life. And now we just continue to go from strength to strength. So I want you to be in that place where being in the media is just now part of what you do, like speaking is for me. But speaking now is just a part of what I do. It's really no big deal. And being in the media is that way for many of our clients. So I just want to leave you with that idea that being in the media is an opportunity for you all to step up, to reach more people, to help more people in a bigger way, and to do what you need to be doing on this planet, whatever your gift is, to spread it to as many people as possible. All right, I'm just going to spend just a minute talking about one of our seminars, if that's okay, if anyone is interested in finding out more about what we offer, just having a quick chat about that. So we have a half-day seminar, which is called the Free Media Publicity Seminar, and it's basically going to show you how to get publicity, a lot more than what I could get into tonight, and create more sales. So you're going to learn 4 steps to media success, the crucial parts of an exceptional publicity campaign, the secret formula we have for you to come up with 3 ideas, at least 3 ideas, usually it's 10 or 20, specific to your business in that seminar. What you need to have in a press release, we go into that in a lot more detail. We go into the publicity process in a lot more detail, and also the huge benefits of being in the media in terms of search engine optimization. So how you can increase your search engine rankings just by being in the media. You can get yourself to the #1 spot on Google with links from the media back to your website. So we go into that in great detail as well. And we also get into mindset. I kind of touched on that a little bit at the end, but we have a section on overcoming your limiting beliefs and fears, because it's so important as business owners to be able to step up and through that stuff. So we hold them here. We usually hold them in this room actually. They're in the mornings from 8:15 till midday. We have no more than 20 businesses at a time in the room. So we don't have a room of 300 people because I like to give personal PR advice to everyone, and I can't do that in a big room. So it's limited to no more than 20 people. It's normally $97, but for you guys tonight, it's $79. As long as you fill the form out and give it back to me tonight, you can have that discount. Fleur's got forms. She might just distribute some around the room now. And there are the upcoming dates. May 29, we've only got 3 places left. That's next week. June 11, which is a Wednesday, 4 places left, and then we've got the 17th of July. So we might just hand out those. So I want to wrap up now and say thank you. Thank you for coming along and supporting Fleur and listening to some ideas around getting publicity. I would love to connect with you and stay in touch with you. So please, if we're not already friends on Facebook, feel free to post on my Facebook page. And if you've got something nice to say about the presentation tonight, that would be lovely. And I will see you then. If someone just sends me a friend request, I often don't see it because I have thousands of friend requests and I'm never going to look at them. So if you post on my page, I'll definitely see you. I hope I have inspired you guys to step up and play a bigger game. I hope you leave here feeling motivated and excited about what the prospects could be about you guys being in the media. So thank you very much for being a great, warm, energy room. And I look forward to seeing you on Facebook, but more importantly, I look forward to seeing you guys in the media very soon. So thank you. Now I'm happy to take some questions if we've got time. Is that all right? Does anyone have any questions? Oh, I've totally bamboozled you all. Yes?
How is the best way to abroad this step?
Well, we come to my seminars and it's the best thing to do, but apart from that, I would start just noticing. Well, you come to my seminars, probably the best thing to do, but apart from that, I would start just noticing what's out there in the media, things that you could tie in with yourself for a story, and start noticing which types of media reach your target market. So start having a look in the newsstand of magazines and so forth. Maybe do a Google search of different media that reach your target market. It's quite easy to find that information online. And then start getting familiar with them. And then when you have an idea, a news idea that matches their target market, contact them with a press release. So just getting familiar with what's out there. Sorry? Yes. There is no one else providing the service we provide. There's lots of Ooh, never been asked that before. There is no one else providing the service that we provide, is the simple answer. There's lots of PR firms and who will try and do your PR for you, not very effectively, but charge you lots of money. And there's a couple of PR people teaching how to do PR, but they're teaching the wrong thing. We're the only company in Australia that is journalists teaching people how to get publicity from what the journalist wants to hear from you. That's our real point. Well, but the fact is we're the only journalists. So yeah, that's our real point of difference. We're the only company of journalists. Yes. Sophie, hello.
Not a question, but a comment which might answer this gentleman. I did Sue's half-day seminar last year sometimes, and got a little bit of information here and there. One of the things that Sue said to me stuck in my mind, which is about getting on Google News. Right, so I went, right, okay. So I went home and I checked it out online, and I discovered, because I'm a psychologist, I discovered that Google News tapped into a website called Psych Central, which is one of the biggest websites for psychology articles internationally. I thought, I'll do that. I was getting heaps. So I got in touch with them and I started writing articles for them. And before long, I was getting heaps of attention. Sue didn't even specifically say that, right? So getting heaps of interest and stuff and hits on my website. Now, just today, a journalist from the Sydney Morning Herald saw one of my articles on the Psych Central website, emailed me, right, asking me very kindly if she could please call me and speak to me on Monday morning for an article that she's running in one of those big glossy magazines in the Sydney Morning Herald, because I was the only writer in Australia who was writing about energy vampires. Oh my God, how easy is that?
Yeah, brilliant.
I didn't even have to do anything.
Yeah,
to get
fantastic.
that contact.
Yeah, so it's just opening your mind to what possibilities are out there. Yeah, and you realise when you get that ball rolling how easy it is.
And I mean, I can say, like, I've done Sue's course, and I do heaps.
I haven't paid Sophie to say any of this, by the way. I didn't even know she was coming.
Thousands of dollars for education.
was going to be.
No.
And honestly, it's the best education that I've done in the last 12 months because it's yielded me the most results. Hands down. I mean, and I don't say that lightly because I get pissed off a lot about stuff that doesn't deliver. But
So Sophie, you've been on Channel 10's Wake Up
I've
program
been
twice.
Channel 10 twice. I've been on 6PR 3 times.
Yep.
I've had an article in Good Health magazine, which is 9MSN. I've had some nibbles of interest from a current affair, which I've got a really big story in the pipeline, as well as some of our Sydney Morning Herald thing, the West Australian coming up with this big story, and also 6PR. So I've got some things lined up and ready to go.
Great. Well done.
Pupil in our midst.
Yes. Yes.
Can I just share, it happened to me about 15 years ago and you got me thinking about it. I was in my first year out teaching down in Albany and I was trained in English and they threw me into a low literacy maths, English, science, social studies and they didn't give me a department. I was sort of thrown into the library and I was trying to generate programs and things for my kids and I just happened to be walking past the Albany
Advertiser.
walked in, spoke to one of the journalists and said, oh, I've got this class that I'm teaching, we're going to be doing all these activities. And next thing you know, she's ringing me with a photographer and I made the front page of the newspaper. And I really paved off the youth coordinator because he had this big fun run and they didn't even get a mention on the front page. And that was me not even really going
trying.
knowing what I was trying to accomplish.
Yes,
So
it is extraordinarily easy once you know how to contact a journalist because there are journalists who are every day. Journalists are desperate for news, and there'll be journalists out there
really
right now. There'll be journalists out there right now who'd love to hear from you all. If you have a story that suits if your market suits their market, I'm sure there's loads of stories that you could be going to them with right now. So, you know, and go for it because, as I said, most journalists only hear from big business and government who are trying to spin a message, and they love to hear from you guys, and they don't love to hear from PR people because they get in the way. They want to hear it from the horse's mouth. They don't want to go through a third party. You guys have the dedication and the commitment and the enthusiasm and the knowledge. And that's how you really connect well with an audience, is with that. Okay, any other questions? 2 more questions? No more questions. Yes?
You know something, the July 17th is actually a Thursday.
Oh, okay. Fleur would know I'm notoriously bad at those details of dates. It's a Thursday.
Oh, not again.
Well, in my own defence, I changed the date, and Fleur was supposed to change the slide, but I didn't tell her it was the day had changed. The date. She got the date right. I can't blame Fleur. It's all my fault. Okay.
So the date is right, not
The date is right. The 17th is right, not the day.
Okay, so that's it?
That's it. Yep.
Can we say thank you? So yes, do go along, just pretend I've got a microphone. I don't want to surprise people if you do go along to Sue's seminar, because is it still working?
Yep.
Yes. Is it working? Oh. Because I am actually Sue's event manager as well. I only work for her 5 days a month. She's a pretty cool person to work
before because I just go, I don't want to work for someone else very much. So just don't want to surprise you. I am the person greeting you and giving you cups of tea at her event as well. So do go along, and I'm a living example as well of her courses. Because she's my friend from school, I didn't get any favours. She doesn't write any media releases for me. I've got to do the work myself. So as you know, a couple of meetings ago, 10 weeks into this business, I was already getting media coverage for out of Box Biz. So that's pretty cool. Anyway, so make sure you sign up for that if you're interested. But we're now going into a break. Yes. And we are on time. So enjoy your break because you're getting the full time. I'm not cutting it short. You have 20 minutes. So it's 7:23, 7:25. Shall we make it? So can we all commit to being back here at 7:45 ready to go? Yes, because we have got another awesome speaker and some heaps more happening after break. Yes?
Are there paid stories on the go with her?
Oh, look, there probably is occasionally. When you see a story about Kmart or something, I dare say that's got something to do with... Yeah, but rarely, yeah. Because, yeah, there'd be one or two a year that would fall into that category, but yeah, so...
Sorry, Peter, I need music.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good.
Good. Have we met before?
We know each other about 3 friends. I think we have got about 73 friends in common.
Okay.
And I remember when I was new in my business, in my cleaning business, I remember one time you wrote on my wall and you said, what's Jesus' last name or what's your name?
Okay,
Something like
because
that.
it was a business name.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And I never saw it.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
But I know I still have